Yes, sir.
Mr. Ashcroft, in the future, America will probably fight more than just rogue terrorist organizations, but other nation-states as well. In light of the fact that you have supported the waterboarding of enemy combatants, what would you say to an American soldier who has been waterboarded by enemy interrogators of another nation-state?
Well, first of all, I reject your question as being factually incorrect, but I'll address the topic of torture, which is, I think, the topic you want to talk about, because I think it's a fair topic. The United States of America is a member state, nation state, of the International Convention Against Torture. When an administration signs a treaty, like a convention, international convention, it's brought before the United States Senate for ratification. In the ratification process, the United States Senate almost invariably adds to the treaty what are called reservations. And in those reservations, the Congress defines what terms mean in the treaty. They did so in terms of the International Convention on Torture. Not only did they do so, but the Congress of the United States then passed a statute regarding torture, making it illegal in the terms of the domestic law, and not only illegal as a part of the international treaty obligations of the United States. And they used the identical language to pass, to implement this, put in the statute, laws forbidding torture. I don't have the statute before me.
I do.
Well,
I got it right here.
well, good. If you want, you can have it. I'm going to answer it. But basically, the law provides that torture is defined in the statute, and whether something is torture or not does not depend on Webster's definition or the public's sort of general feeling about what would be torture. It would be torture to me to go to a high school dance. It might be torture for me to listen to your iPod. I don't know. But the point is that there is a legal definition. It was promulgated, passed by the Congress of the United States in two instances, one in the reservations of the International Convention Against Torture and the other in the specific statute. Now, to the extent that it provides that you have to have significant long-term physical injury as a result of something, that would be, I think, a way that they would have defined torture. Now, waterboarding is a pretty generalized term. Everybody likes to talk about it. Nobody defines it. I know people who have undergone it.
It's very specific.
It's a very specific thing.
Waterboarding, yeah.
Well, when it happens in a specific way, but not everything that people have ever referred to as waterboarding is the same.
You're lying.
Pardon?
No lie.
Who said what there? I mean, you know, somebody has lost the ability to have discourse. The point is this: the Congress has defined it. The law has the definition. I don't believe the law has been violated. And if the law needs to be changed, you should talk to your congressman, not talk to me about it. But for the Congress to sit in Congress and to act as if in shock and horror over the fact that there would be one kind of enhanced interrogation or another, whether you ask a person to stand when they're answering questions as opposed to be seated, or whether you turn a bright light on, maybe like I'm under the bright light here for answering questions, or whether you play loud music, that's a question of law. And if it's against the law, prosecute people. Now, do we prosecute people who abuse detainees? You can ask a number of people who are in jail right now whether we do. People who perpetrated the outrages at Abu Ghraib are in prison right now because the United States of America rejects the abuse of detainees. And I expect it to. I expect it to continue to. Do I expect the United States of America never to have anybody violate a law? Of course not. Because it's impossible to have cultures where no one violates the law. What you want to ask your government to do is that when the law is violated, for violations to be prosecuted. And if you believe there ought to be laws that make loud radio playing or bright lights or making people stand up for a period of time to answer questions, if you think that ought to be included in torture, change the law. But right now, that kind of stuff is pretty clear to me what the Congress has been talking about, saying, oh, that's torture. It's not.
In light of the unprecedented disapproval of the Bush administration and your actions under the Bush administration, have you reconsidered what you did as Attorney General? So basically, do you have a soul, and if so, do you sleep at
You see, I think that whether a person has a soul or not is a question that God would be interested in asking. And I find it a bit offensive when people try to play God and question whether other people have souls. Next question.
Hello. I'm Tom Fugoloro, Knox student, newspaper. Okay. ABC News reported last week or recently that you had a meeting with George Tenet, Condoleezza Rice, Dick Cheney, you know, all the big guns, in which you discussed at length what was and was not torture, correct? And the things that you
First of
included.
all, I do not know whether ABC had such a report. If you're asking me correct, I can't tell you whether ABC had that covered.
You don't know if they published that?
I don't know if they published it. Do you? When did they publish it?
April 9th or more recently?
Which one? You don't know either, do you?
I don't appreciate your state of discourse. Anyway, the Geneva Convention specifically states that you cannot use torture or cruel treatment, which is a little broader even than torture, which if you dance around torture, cruel treatment, but at this meeting, you allowed slapping, sleep deprivation, and waterboarding, and I'm guessing, since you as Attorney General, they would have been asking you, can we legally do this? And you would have had to say, yes. So, my question to you is, does that put you in violation of the Geneva Conventions? Does that make you a war criminal? And why are you not afraid of being arrested for that?
You know, thank you for your question. I am not in violation of the Geneva Conventions. I am not a war criminal, and I have not committed a crime. And that's why I'm not afraid of being prosecuted. I mean, to give you very direct answers to your questions. And as it relates to the rest of your speech, it was largely factually inaccurate, but I'm not going to try and correct it.
Mr. Ashcroft, I may just say that that's a lovely tie you're wearing. One of your first priorities of the Justice Department was to pull funding from the gay, lesbian, transgender, and bisexual group, their annual prize fundraiser. To what do we owe the honor of being the priority of the head of the Justice Department?
I have no idea what would make me want to focus on something like that. It's a very next question.
You made a speech in November of last year at the University of Colorado where someone in the audience asked if you were willing to be waterboarded, and you said, "The things I can survive, if it were necessary to do them to me, I would do." So I'm interested in narrowing down what you consider torture. Is it basically anything the human body can endure without dying?
Let me just say this, that I'm not here to tell you about what I would consider torture, because the list would be big. I told you a high school dance would probably be torture for me. What's important is what the Congress has enacted as a law, what it enacted when it provided reservations for the International Convention.
Could you please answer my question?
I think I've answered that question to the extent that I want to.